Well, good Monday morning. How you doing? Did you have a good weekend? I'm so ready to go this week because I love the passage that we are going to study together, you and I. Last week we started, I'm going to just call this a mini series of looking at great passages in the Bible, sometimes great chapters, if we can do that. Do all the chapter in a week. Uh, but we can. And I love this chapter. Last week it was John chapter 1. And I just encourage any new believer or any person that wants a basic understanding of Christianity to read John 1, and especially those first 18 verses. I would even say you should commit those 18 to memorization. And if you weren't with us last week, go on YouTube, do yourself a favor, and listen to those shows. I love those verses so much. But I feel the same way about these. And if you just, in this short group of weeks, we're going to look at passages that if you get these 4 or 5 down, your understanding of Christianity is going to have leaps forward. It really is. And you can point people to these passages when you're talking with them to answer their questions. Now, John chapter 21, which is the chapter that we're going to look at today, and this week, is the last chapter that the Apostle John wrote down in this book. Of course, he went on to write the book of Revelation and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. So John had a lot of authorship in the New Testament. There's so much in this chapter. So I hope you'll stick with me all week. And if you do, listen to what you're going to get. We have proof that Jesus conquered death. We have evidence that Jesus is in fact the sovereign, in control God of the Bible. We're going to find out and talk about what our heavenly bodies, when we live in heaven, what will your body look like? What will it do? How will all of us live our lives? What bodies will be given? And can you imagine that's in this chapter? And then we can know, in fact, what is the most important thing to Jesus in our lives. What is it that we should have? And then lastly, know with certainty that how he wants us to live our lives. We're going to get all that this week. Now, the first thing that I mentioned, and it's vital, well, actually, every one of those is vital. So I sure hope you'll be here every day this week. But how can we know, with absolute proof, that Jesus conquered death? Because this is so important that we be convinced in our hearts that he did. And you know why? You know why? Because there's so many promises in the Bible, many of whom come directly from Jesus, that would not be true if, in fact, he were still in the grave. I don't know what your favorite promises are, but I know right up there would be the promise of eternal life or to live forever. No one wants to die. I don't want to die. Do you want to? I take that back. That is one silly question. No one wants to die. And in fact, Jesus promised we will not if we believe in him. He promised a perfect place for us to live. In fact, he promised that he's going ahead to prepare a place for you and I. And that, in fact, that place would be in the New Jerusalem. But if Jesus didn't conquer death, then none of those things would be true. Neither would peace in our daily life right now, nor would there be any purpose in living. But did he die? Yes, he did. But he rose again from the dead. And that was on Easter Sunday, what we celebrate as Easter Sunday. Now, how do I know? And why in this particular chapter? I mean, there are many other places, of course. But in this particular chapter, I love it. And I'll tell you why in literally just a moment. But in John chapter 21, it begins with verse 1. Afterward, Jesus appeared to his disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And then it happened this way, and he reads on. And we'll read that in the coming days, the whole chapter. Verse 7 says, and then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." Now, who was the apostle whom Jesus loved? Various times in this book, Apostle John calls himself the one whom Jesus loved. Jesus loved them all, but that was the nickname given to John. So it was in fact John who was writing this chapter who said, "It is the Lord. It is the Lord." And verse 10 says, Jesus said to them, "Bring some fish that you have caught." There's no question whatsoever in the Apostle John's mind, who wrote verse 10. He wrote the whole chapter, that person standing on the shore that day was Jesus. That was Jesus. And it says also that it was the third time that they had seen him. Can you imagine? So what we have, friends, is an eyewitness account from somebody who lived for 3 years with Jesus. He was so close to him that he was called the apostle whom Jesus loved. Talk about an eyewitness that's credible. And in fact, it wasn't just him. All the other apostles who were there knew it was Jesus. We have eyewitness account. They were experts. There's no way this person on the shore could fool those whom had lived with him for 3 long years. There's no doubt whatsoever that he was alive. And there's other things that we will learn, like I said, all week long, but I wanted us to get this first and foremost of all, that there is no question that this person on the shore who's going to interact with, and we'll see what they do from eating together and so forth, there's no question it was Jesus. And I want you to have no doubts whatsoever. You would believe eyewitnesses. Could you be fooled? If your best friend for years and years was before you, would you know it was that person or not? Of course you would. And by the way, John and the others were so convinced. Well, there was no doubt. They never even discussed it. It was Jesus, period. And the amazing thing about seeing the risen Lord is they went on to live their whole lives for him and die not denying it at all. They knew it was him. Hey, God bless. Another great truth tomorrow. See you then.
Oh, come to the Father through Jesus the Son and give